The wrestling world just got flipped upside down, and what you're about to hear will make you question everything you thought you knew about Seth Rollins and his supposed exit from the Vision. While everyone was busy mourning the end of an era and speculating about what went wrong, the architect was orchestrating perhaps the most brilliant psychological warfare strategy we've seen in modern professional wrestling. And if you stick around, because this rabbit hole goes deeper than anyone could have imagined, you'll understand why this move might just be the most calculated decision of Rollins' entire career. Before we dive into this absolute chaos, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because we're bringing you the most explosive wrestling news that the mainstream media won't tell you. The whole situation started when reports began circulating that Seth Rollins had been removed from the Vision, the faction that had been dominating Monday Night Raw for months. Fans were shocked, social media exploded, and everyone started pointing fingers trying to figure out who was responsible for this dramatic split. The dirt sheets were working overtime, insiders were claiming they had the real story, and wrestling Twitter was having a complete meltdown over what this meant for the future of both Rollins and the group. But here's where things get absolutely wild. None of it was real. Not a single word of those reports held any actual truth, and the man behind the curtain pulling all the strings was Seth Rollins himself. You see, what we're dealing with here isn't just a simple storyline twist or a work shoot that got out of hand. This is Seth Rollins playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers, and he's been about 15 moves ahead of everybody from the very beginning. The removal from the Vision was never legitimate. It was a carefully constructed illusion designed to accomplish multiple objectives that are so genius in their execution that even veteran wrestling observers completely missed what was happening right under their noses. Rollins knew exactly what he was doing when he planted those initial seeds of doubt, when he started acting distant from the group, when those first whispers of backstage heat began making their rounds through the wrestling journalism community. The first layer of this strategy was pure misdirection. By making everyone believe he was out of the Vision, Rollins created a situation where his eventual opponents would lower their guard. Think about it from a psychological perspective. If you're preparing to face the Vision and you think their most dangerous member has been kicked out, you're going to adjust your entire game plan accordingly. You're going to focus on the remaining members, you're going to study their patterns without Rollins in the equation, and you're going to walk into that arena thinking you know exactly what to expect. That's exactly what Rollins wanted. He wanted his enemies to prepare for a war without him, so that when he inevitably showed back up, the shock factor alone would be enough to throw everyone completely off balance. But the misdirection was only the beginning of this elaborate scheme. The second purpose behind this fake removal was even more calculated, and it involves the internal dynamics of the Vision itself. There had been legitimate rumblings, completely separate from this worked angle, about tension within the group. Nothing major, nothing that was going to tear them apart, but the kind of creative differences and ego clashes that naturally occur when you put several main event level talents in the same stable. Rollins recognized this potential weakness, and instead of letting it fester and possibly become a real problem, he manufactured a crisis that would force the group to confront their issues head-on. When everyone thought Rollins was actually gone, the remaining members of the Vision had to ask themselves some serious questions. How much did they rely on him? Could they function without his leadership? What did his absence reveal about their own roles within the faction? This forced period of self-reflection, even though it was based on false pretenses, ended up strengthening the bonds between all the members, because they realized just how integral each person was to the group's success. It was like relationship therapy, except instead of a licensed professional, they had Seth Rollins manipulating reality itself to make them appreciate what they had. The man is out here playing psychological games that would make Sigmund Freud take notes. The third element of this master plan, and this is where it gets really interesting, involves the WWE creative team and the higher ups in the company. Rollins has always been someone who understands the business side of wrestling just as well as he understands what happens between the ropes. He knows that in modern WWE, the amount of buzz you generate directly correlates to your position on the card and your leverage in contract negotiations. By creating this fake controversy, Rollins guaranteed that he would be at the center of wrestling conversation for weeks. Every podcast discussed it, every YouTube channel made videos about it, every wrestling website ran multiple articles trying to get to the bottom of what really happened. That's exactly the kind of attention that makes you invaluable to a publicly traded company that lives and dies by engagement metrics and trending topics. Now let's talk about the execution, because the devil is always in the details. Rollins didn't just announce he was leaving the Vision and expect people to buy it. He constructed an entire narrative with multiple touchpoints that all seemed to confirm the story. There were carefully timed social media posts that appeared to show frustration. There were interviews where his body language suggested tension even if his words said everything was fine. There were moments during matches and backstage segments where you could see what looked like genuine discord between him and the other Vision members. Every single one of these moments was scripted, rehearsed, and performed with the precision of a Broadway production. Rollins has always been one of the best actors in professional wrestling, and he proved it by getting the entire industry to believe a complete fabrication. The dirt sheet reporters, God bless them, they tried their best to get to the bottom of this story. They reached out to their sources, they compared notes, they did everything you're supposed to do when investigating a story in wrestling journalism. But here's the thing about Seth Rollins and this particular situation. He was so committed to maintaining the illusion that he actually fed false information to people who would inevitably leak it to the wrestling media. He played the game better than the people whose job it is to report on the game. Some of these journalists built entire narratives around their exclusive scoops about the Rollins situation, only to eventually realize they had been worked harder than a dark match talent on a house show loop. The conspiracy goes even deeper when you consider who else might have been in on this from the beginning. Obviously, the other members of the Vision had to know what was happening because they were actively participating in selling the story. But what about the people they were feuding with? What about the referees who had to react to certain situations? What about the production crew who had to film everything in a way that supported the narrative? The number of people who had to maintain this secret and never let it slip in a casual conversation or an unguarded moment on social media is actually impressive. It shows the level of trust and professionalism that exists when you're working with top-tier talent who understand the assignment. One of the most fascinating aspects of this whole situation is watching it play out in real time on social media. Wrestling fans are incredibly smart and observant. They catch details that most people would miss. They analyze everything frame by frame looking for clues and inconsistencies. And yet, despite all that scrutiny, Rollins managed to maintain this illusion for an extended period. Sure, there were some fans who suspected something was off, who thought maybe the whole thing was a work, but they were drowned out by the overwhelming majority who bought into the story completely. Rollins essentially gaslit an entire fanbase and made them question their own judgment about what was real and what was performance in an industry where that line is already blurry to begin with. The timing of the eventual reveal, assuming it has happened by the time you're watching this, is going to be crucial. Rollins couldn't let this play out too long or people would lose interest. He couldn't reveal it too early or it wouldn't have the maximum impact. Finding that sweet spot where the story has generated enough buzz but hasn't overstayed its welcome is an art form in itself. This is where Rollins' years of main event experience come into play. He understands pacing and timing not just for a single match but for storylines that unfold over weeks and months. He knows when to turn up the heat and when to let things simmer. What makes this situation even more incredible is that we're living in an era where information travels at the speed of light. Somebody sneezes backstage at a WWE show and there's a tweet about it before they can even say bless you. Maintaining any kind of secret in this environment is nearly impossible, which is why most wrestling storylines that try to blur the line between reality and fiction end up getting exposed almost immediately. The fact that Rollins pulled this off in this current climate is a testament to his intelligence, his commitment, and his understanding of how the modern wrestling ecosystem operates. He knew exactly which levers to pull and which buttons to push to make this work. Let's also consider the potential long-term ramifications of this strategy. If Rollins successfully convinced the entire wrestling world that he was out of the Vision only to reveal it was all a ruse, what does that do to his credibility going forward? On one hand, it establishes him as someone who is willing to go to extreme lengths to gain an advantage, which makes him an even more dangerous opponent. On the other hand, it might make people more skeptical the next time there's news about internal friction or roster changes involving him. That could actually work in his favor though, because it means he's always going to be shrouded in mystery and unpredictability. You never quite know what's real with Seth Rollins, and that ambiguity makes him endlessly fascinating. The wrestler who benefits most from this kind of storytelling is the one who can make people feel something genuine even when they know they're watching a performance. That's the paradox of professional wrestling. We all know it's predetermined, we all know the outcomes are decided beforehand, but the best performers make us forget that knowledge and get emotionally invested anyway. Rollins taking that concept and applying it to backstage drama and faction politics shows an evolution in how wrestling stories can be told. He's not just working the audience during his matches, he's working them 24 hours a day through every possible medium and platform. There's also something to be said about how this reflects the current state of WWE as a company. They're clearly willing to embrace more complex storytelling that doesn't just take place during the broadcast. They're using social media, they're using interviews with mainstream outlets, they're using every tool at their disposal to create immersive narratives that exist across multiple platforms simultaneously. The Vision storyline in general and this Rollins fake removal specifically represents WWE's commitment to treating their product as a year-round serialized drama rather than just a weekly wrestling show. That's a significant shift in philosophy, and it's producing some of the most compelling content they've put out in years. Another angle to consider is how this affects the other wrestlers in the locker room. When you see someone like Seth Rollins pull off something this elaborate and generate this much attention, it has to inspire other performers to think bigger about their own characters and storylines. Wrestling has always had an element of one-upmanship where talents try to outdo each other, and this fake removal situation sets a pretty high bar for creative ambition. It wouldn't be surprising to see other wrestlers attempt similar fourth-wall breaking angles, though they'll have their work cut out for them trying to match the sophistication of what Rollins accomplished here. The business implications can't be ignored either. Wrestling is ultimately about drawing money, whether that's through ticket sales, television ratings, streaming subscriptions, or merchandise. Everything WWE does has to be viewed through that lens. This Rollins situation generated an enormous amount of free publicity and kept fans engaged with the Vision storyline even during periods when they might not have been on television. That sustained interest translates directly into financial value for the company. The fact that Rollins understands this and actively works to maximize his value to WWE while also advancing his character is why he's been at the top of the card for so long. Looking at the bigger picture, what we're witnessing here is the evolution of what it means to be a professional wrestler in the modern era. It's no longer enough to just be good in the ring or good on the microphone. You have to understand psychology, marketing, social media strategy, narrative structure, and business operations. You have to be part athlete, part actor, part businessman, and part social media influencer. Seth Rollins embodies all of those roles, and this fake removal from the Vision is the perfect example of someone who has mastered every aspect of his profession. He's not just reacting to the circumstances around him, he's actively shaping those circumstances to serve his goals. The genius of this entire situation is that even after it's revealed to be a work, even after everyone knows it was fake from the beginning, the story still works. It actually becomes more impressive once you understand the level of planning and execution that went into pulling it off. That's the mark of truly elite storytelling. It holds up under scrutiny and actually gets better the more you think about it. Rollins has created something that wrestling fans will be talking about and studying for years to come, analyzing every detail and trying to spot the clues they missed the first time around. So while everyone else was busy panicking about the future of the Vision or celebrating what they thought was the downfall of Seth Rollins, the architect was sitting back and watching his master plan unfold exactly as he designed it. He manipulated the media, he manipulated the fans, he manipulated his opponents, and he did it all while making it look effortless. This is why Seth Rollins is considered one of the greatest professional wrestlers of his generation. It's not just about the matches, though those are consistently excellent. It's about understanding the total package of what makes professional wrestling work and executing at the highest possible level across every dimension of the business. If you found this deep dive into the Seth Rollins situation as mind-blowing as we did, make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on the latest wrestling news and analysis. We're here bringing you the stories behind the stories, the explanations that make sense of the chaos, and the truth about what's really happening in the world of professional wrestling. Don't let yourself be the last person to know what's going on. Subscribe now and join the community of fans who stay ahead of the curve and always know what's coming next.